What's up, my wizards? It's Dev. SBMTG. We like magic. Nice. And today, look how fat this baby's gotten. It's white, he's a fat baby. Anyway, we're also going to look at Modern Horizons spoilers today. You probably guessed that. But there's a lot. There's a bunch of cards. Most of them common. But I still want to get to all of them. So there's no time for dilly-dallies. Let's go ahead and get in it. Well, first, let's jump in on Gilded Light here. This is just 2 mana, 1 and a white for an instant. You gain Shroud until end of turn. And it cycles for just 2 mana. So it's a nice little reprint from Scourge that I think might actually see some play sparingly in white sideboards in Modern that don't have access to answers in blue and other colors, you know. I think that this might actually be pretty nice to keep your opponent off of storming out and just killing with a grape shot or something like that. And this also defends against like various, you know, make a giant X spell decks, so that's worth a little bit, but I like the play against Storm especially, and man, Storm decks are just receiving like punch after punch after punch to the ball bag in Modern Horizons, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but let's move on to another card that cycles and is common. Crocin Tusks, another reprint as well. 7 mana, 5 and 2 green for a 6/5 boar beast with cycling 2 and a green. And here's the best part. When you cycle it, you can search your library for a basic land card, reveal that card, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. So this is and always has been very, very good and limited, but I'm not sure how much play it sees outside of that environment. Again, cycling the card is the best part about it. Drawing and also being able to search up a land is actually pretty decent. That's not bad at all, especially at instant speed. And when you draw in the late game, it's just like a huge threat. So this card also occasionally would see like very sparing 1 or 2 of play because these cycling cards have like relatively low opportunity cost. You know, at the very least, this is a spell that sort of, you know, fixes your mana, gets you a land, thins your deck a little bit, and draws you the card. And that's actually, again, like the best function of the card. So it will occasionally see some play, but I really doubt it in this modern format. Things are looking pretty yoked here, and I doubt that Crocin Tusks has the chops. That doesn't mean there weren't commons today that do have them chops, like Defile, and just 1 black mana for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. Well, this is Pauper playable day 1. There's already a mono-black control deck. There's a blue-black control deck in Pauper 2 that probably wants this, but will probably skew even more black so it can fit more swamps and play this thing. Just 1 mana is an insane rate. Even if you only have like 2 swamps, it's a dead-weighted instant speed, which is actually pretty okay, but anytime you have, you know, 3, 4 swamps, this is actually a crazy spell for just 1 mana, and in the late game, it's basically just like better than Revolted Fatal Push. You know, it's like one of the best 1 mana removal spells you could possibly ask for. So even in like mono black decks in big boy, you know, big girl pants Modern, this could actually be playable as maybe a 1 or 2 of. But you know, another card that's going to work if you're putting your big girl pants on in Modern is Faerie Seer. Just 1 blue mana for a 1/1 fairy wizard. Look at those creature types with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 2. This is crazy. This is how you make Omen Speaker playable, right? You just cut the price in half and give it flying, and suddenly, hey, it's good. It also has great creature types again with that, you know. In the Pauper Fairies deck, this just works super well with Spellstutter Sprite. It might go in the Modern Fairies deck too. It might be worth this 1 drop because, geez, this effect is insane for what is effectively a tempo deck. You know, in all formats, Fairies effectively functions as a tempo deck, and being able to fix your draws for the next couple of turns on turn 1 is just a really, really good ability. And then when it's outlived, you know, it's sort of usefulness. You can just champion it or something. That's in the Modern Fairies deck. So, just like I really like everything about this. The way it works, you know, playing into Spellstutter Sprite. It's basically another Fairy Miscreant for 1-drop purposes. Just gonna go so well. Again, like across the board in every Fairies deck. And you guys know, if you're a fan of the channel, I'm a fan of Fairies. You know, I played Fairies in Lorwyn Standard. And that's probably the most competitively I've ever actually gotten down and played Magic. I went to a bunch of tournaments in those couple of seasons, and just loved the Fairies deck so much, and I've got a special affinity for it in my heart, a special place. And so seeing this just gets me like really, really excited. This is a ridiculous 1-drop for Fairies decks in pretty much every format. I probably should have saved that card for like the end of the day, actually, because like, I don't know, other Pauper playable, especially 1-drops, aren't great. You know, like Universal Automaton, we got to see this today. And it's kind of exciting. It's just a 1 mana 1/1 changeling. It's also an artifact creature. So it's every creature type, including artifact creature. I don't know, it could be important. But I'm not like super impressed by this whatsoever. I mean, I should be a little bit more excited about it because it's just in every single creature type tribal 1-drop. But in most important tribes, you can find a better 1-drop, and it's just a 1-mana 1/1, you know. So, but in tribes that you want to get wacky and build like, I don't know, goats or like wombats or something like that, then like this is going to be, you know, your only playable 1-drop in very, very specific tiny tribes. So it might see some play here and there, but let's look at a card I think is going to see way more play, and that's Magmatic Sinkholes. I'm trying to do a balance. Like, here's some good cards, here's a bad card. Here's a good card. Magmatic Sinkhole is 6 mana, 5 and a red for an instant with Delve. And Magmatic Sinkhole deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Now we're talking here, you know? I think that in Pauper, this is just okay, you know? This kills like Gurmag Angler and stuff, which red doesn't have a whole lot of tools to be able to do that. So this is probably going to see play in Pauper red decks for that reason alone. You know, this might get like a 1 of in Pauper Burns sideboard, maybe a 2 or 3 of. It all depends, because Gurmag Angler is a really strong creature, and pretty much anything above 4 toughness is really, really difficult to kill. Really anything above 3 toughness is difficult to kill in Pauper Burns, so this will probably see some amount of play just for that reason alone. But again, put your pants on, because I think this might be modern playable in sideboards at the very least. You know, again, burn decks, or just like red-blue decks, you know, spells decks, Storm and stuff like that, although I really doubt it that this is going to see play in Storm. But again, maybe Phoenix, you know, is like a decent sideboard piece. Just any really heavy spells deck this could easily go in. And it could even go in like dredge decks that want to play red. We just saw Shenanigans the other day. There's plenty of reasons for red decks to want to, you know, dredge and delve now that we get to see these, you know, 2 cards over the last couple of days. So I like so much about Sinkhole, but I'm not sure how much actual modern play it sees. It almost guaranteed to see Pauper play though, so at least it's got that going for it. But Geomancers Gambit, GG here, is 3 mana, 2 and a green for a sorcery. Destroy target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, shuffle their library, and then you draw a card. Now, most of the coverage of this card, whether it's on Reddit, Mythic spoiler comments, people's YouTube videos, whatever, so far has been like, okay, so they go get a basic land, but you also draw a card, so it's pretty good. I don't think so. I really don't. Like, I guess the best use for this is against Tron. And again, this is a common, so against Pauper Tron, this might actually read pretty good. But, like, I just think Stone Rain is just better, you know? I would rather Stone Rain them and leave them down on board presence and lands and, you know, increase the chances that I'm going to win that game because maybe they haven't drawn enough lands, you know, and they just, like, screw and die that way, you know? So I think that just regular land destruction is way better in this case than like an Assassin's Trophy for for strictly lands. And even though this might disrupt the occasional Tron or like other weird stuff they might be trying to do with non-basics, I'm still not quite sure that it's worth it over just like actual Ponza. You know, because like this does draw the card, yeah, it replaces itself, and I get that. Drawing a card is like the best thing you can do in Magic, so I do want to give that caveat to this card, but in most cases, I would just rather leave them down on lands. I think, in most cases, I'll take the known evil over the unknown evil. And I'm not sure that this card quite cuts the mustard. But here's a common that I'm really excited for here. This is Ephemera. Just 1 white mana for an instant. Exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And it also rebounds. I think this is actually really cool art, but aside from that, I really like the function of the card. Just 1 white mana. For a double, like Cloud Shift? That's actually great. You know, being able to effectively cast Cloud Shift twice makes it a much, much better card, I would say, especially in the Bopper environment, where this just has all of the good targets. So, huge fan of this card. Can't wait to try this out. And I'm not sure we're putting our pants on for this one, but again, 1 mana for this effect twice could definitely see play in Modern. Just hitting like a Snapcaster Mage seems pretty decent. So, I like this card. I like this card a lot. I'm going to move on to Reap the Past. One of the few rares that we got to see today. This is just a red and a green and X for sorcery. Return X target cards at random from your graveyard. Well, it doesn't target. Return X cards at random from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Reap the Past. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, is probably at least decent in Commander. You know, like, if Gruul decks just want to get a bunch of cards out of their graveyard, it's effectively card advantage, so I guess that's good. But the word random on a Magic card pretty much universally turns me off, with the one exception of being like when the opponent has to discard at random. That's fantastic. But, you know, not being able to really control what you get back unless you have all of the mana in the world, again, it turns me off a bit, but just, I mean, Commander, as a way for Gruul decks to just like draw 5, it seems really good. But we got an uncommon today that looks like less playable than most of the commons that we've seen so far today, and that's Smiting Helix, which is a cool callback. It's 3 and a black for a sorcery that deals 3 damage to any target, you gain 3 life, and you can flash it back as a Lightning Helix. Just a red and a white. So, you know, we got Flash It Back, it's a Time Twister. We got that yesterday. So I guess we get Flash It Back, it's a Lightning Helix, because those are comparably powerful cards, right? But still, I actually think this, even though it sounds like I'm ragging on it, I actually really like this card. I'm not sure that Mardu decks are a thing or want to do this, but just in case they do, if modern, Mardu Burn wants to exist, this is actually not the worst rate in the world at 2 mana, especially. We already know Lightning Helix is a decent card, but even if you have to cast this to put it in your graveyard in the first place, it's pretty okay, like a total of 6 mana over the course of a couple of turns to hit for 6 and gain 6 life. That's like really swingy. You can kill 2 creatures, gain a lot of life back against aggro. I mean, you really can't deny that having this kind of effective 2-for-1 that swings the game this much in terms of life totals, actually pretty good. So I've got my eye on it, but I'm not too sure about it. There's also Mind Rake, 3 mana, 2 and a black for sorcery. Target player discards 2 cards, overloads for 1 and a black. So you can target everybody and discard your own cards if you want to do that, which I guess there's reasons why you might want to. There's reasons why you'd break this. And in a combo deck that's trying to break this, I like that if you overload it, then you're able to, not only dump stuff in your graveyard that you want to, put in there, but also get answers out of your opponent's hand at the same time in one fell swoop. I think that might actually be really playable, especially in Pauper combo decks. But again, this one might actually have the power level for Modern, because I really like how symmetrical it is. When you overload it, you're doing something you want to be doing, while also making sure your opponent can't answer what you eventually are trying to do. And I think that's really good. Don't worry, I will show my face to you, by the way. I say that 10 or 15 minutes into the video, but anyway. I've just got a few more commons and uncommons to go over today that I think are relatively low impact, like Everdream, even though I really do like this card, and it could actually do a thing, but this is just 1 and a blue for an instant, draw a card, splice onto instant or sorcery, 2 and a blue. So this can be like a Whispers of the Muse, and that's actually really good. I loved Whispers back in the day, and I mean back in the day, Tempest block, I loved Whispers. I loved buyback as a mechanic in general, and this is kind of a sort of a buyback effect. Splicing onto like Arcane was terrible in Kamigawa block, but I like the couple of cards that we've seen here in Modern Horizons that have splice onto instant sorcery, because you'll be able, in a lot of cases, to just splice this onto a 1 mana thing, and for 4 mana you get, the original spell's effect plus draw a card. And late in the game for control decks, that can be a great effect at instant speed, because you've got all the mana in the world to spend anyway at the end of your opponent's turn, when you can put your shields down a little bit more safely. And an effect like this that you can use 2, 3, 4 times in a game is much more powerful than it looks like. So don't discredit or discount this card, because I actually think this might have a chance. And if nothing else, this is absolutely gorgeous, breathtaking, insanely beautiful art that I want right now. But let's break the tension completely with Frostwall here. This is just 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 2/2 snow lizard. And if you pay a snow mana, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And you can only activate this ability once each turn. So, I mean, definitely not a Basking Root Wall. Not even close. This is maybe, possibly, the worst card so far. This actually isn't bad in Limited, where you can effectively make it like a 3 mana initial investment, 4/4, and at the common level it's really good in Limited, so at least it needs to be talked about. But I mean, like, there are a lot of bad commons and stuff in this set that you can at least take an angle on, and you can't take an angle on. This doesn't go in the snow deck. It's bad. It's just bad in competitive play, so there's not even like a hot take or anything. So we'll move on to Urza's Rage, one of my favorite reprints of the day. I used to love Urza's Rage, but I can't remember a time where I ever really cast it for its kicker cost. It's really difficult to do. But if you want to live the dream, you can kick this for 9 mana. It costs 3 mana to cast, and it just deals 3 damage to a target. But if you kick it, it does 10 damage to that permanent or player, and the damage can't be prevented. And by the way, it can't be countered no matter if it's kicked or not. So downshifted to uncommon and given the new art treatment, which is all cool by me, you know. Again, I'm a fan favorite of this card, but that's what this is. It's mostly just like fan service, I think. It's a nostalgic pick, but I guess if you have enough mana, this card becomes pretty decent. I guess, but I'm just not sure how there aren't like way better options in Modern, because the decks that make all the mana in Modern make all of the mana. So, I don't know why you'd stop at Urza's Rage, I guess, is my point. I mean, like, maybe there is a percent of a percent chance that, like, Tron wants this, and it might be missing something. You know, the uncounterability might be a really huge deal. The ability to play it without actually kicking it and just kill a thing uncounterably might be a big deal. You know, kill a Planeswalker uncounterably. That might be really good, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure that this card is just like nostalgic fan service and not much more. But I'm willing to be wrong on this one because I love Urza's Rage. Please let me be wrong. But up next, let's bring it down a little bit more with Thornado right here. Just the best name for a Magic card there ever was. 3 mana, 2 and a green for an instant. Destroy target creature with flying, and it cycles for 1 and a green, so you can actually put it in your main deck in Limited. That's pretty much all I really have to say about the card. So, I'm going to move on to another card with just unfreaking believable art. This is Soulherder. I have never talked about art so much in the same video, but good lord, look at Soulherder and how awesome it is. It's just 3 mana, 1 a white and a blue for a spirit. That's a creature type we care about. It's a 1/1, and whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on Soulherder. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it works with a bunch of spirits. You know, I'm not sure this goes in the spirits deck. And 3 mana is an awful lot. That's so much. You know? But at the same time, I actually think that this card could be really, really good in certain decks. You know, it's kind of a flicker wisp that keeps wisping turn after turn after turn. But at the same time, I'm not sure that this is quite where it needs to be. It also, though, it adds power to the table every turn, too, you know? Something that the Spirits deck, in particular, might want. And is going to be really good in Limited, too. You know, you get a couple of people enter the battlefield triggers with this out, then just, like, you can go ham really, really easily. So, big fan of this card. And I'm not really sure how many places it's going, but I know it's going in my binder. You know, I don't care. It's just an uncommon or whatever. But this is one of those cards that just, like, it really hits on a lot of levels for me. And I like a lot about not only the aesthetic, obviously, but just, like, the function of the card, the possibilities, you know, the different decks it can go in. I like a lot about this, and I want to try to make it work in, like, 8 different ways. But we also saw a bunch of ninjas today. As we sort of start to round things out, we're going to be coming up on the last few best, quote-unquote, best to my mind, cards of the day here, but I want to go ahead and show you Phantom Ninja and Throat Seeker and Ninja of the New Moon. There's another one, by the way, but still, these are just like all, you know, mostly, you know, lower rarity. I was going to say common level, but Throat Seeker is an uncommon, and it's probably the best of these. But Phantom Ninja first. This is just a 3-mana 2/2 that can't be blocked, and we've definitely seen that. This is an old Magic card, right? But at least it's a ninja now, so it goes in your Ninja Commander deck. And it's really good at ninjas, because it can't be blocked. So as long as it, you know, gets through without being hit by a removal spell or something, it's going to give you some ninjutsu stuff, like Ninja of the New Moon in your limited deck. You know, 5 mana to play, but just 4 mana to ninjutsu in your 6/3 Spirit Ninja, and that's pretty good, you know, going unblocked and then hitting for 6 guaranteed. Seems pretty nice, but it won't see play like anywhere else. Maybe Commander Ninjas if you don't really have that many options for ninjas, but I really doubt it. Now, Throat Seeker probably does go into Commander Ninjas. You know, 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 Vampire Ninja. Good creature types there. And unblocked attacking ninjas you control have lifelink. That's really good. So every time that you not only, you know, ninjutsu, but just get in for combat damage, period, with your ninjas, you gain some life. And that's just fantastic, especially in a format like Commander. But even in a format like Modern, I think this might be a halfway playable card. If Ninjas wants to be anything at all, this is a pretty decent 3-drop. Although you are trying to do some ninjutsuing on turn 3, so I think that this competes with a few things, but I still think that at least the 2 of, if not the full 4 of this, is at least debatable in Modern Ninjas, because, you know, just hitting for lifelink once with a team of ninjutsus dudes is going to be, like, really, really good. So I like this card a lot. I'm actually pretty hyped for it if you can't tell. We also saw Moonblade Shinobi, which I just couldn't fit on the page with those other cards. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/2 human ninja with ninjutsu 2 and a blue. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with flying. This might be one of the best of these 4 or 5 ninjas that we got to see today too, you know. When it ninjutsu's in, you're at the very least going to get, you know, 2 bodies on the battlefield, and one of them flies. But it's a killer and limited. Fills your board. Really good card. But let's get on to some of the better cards of the day, which includes a reprint. Wall of Blossoms. Wall of Blossoms. I just hit the couch. Finally, in Modern, everybody. 2 mana, 1 green for a 0/4 plant wall with Defender. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Yeah, I'm going to show my face for Wall of Blossoms. You thought I was excited for Urza's Rage? Only a little bit. Wall of Blossoms, though? Yeah, full-on hype for this. This is easily one of my favorite cards from back in the day, Magic. I keep using that phrase, but, like, if you like to play Magic in the late 90s, have I got a set for you? Or at least have I got a day of spoilers for you? Because Wall of Blossoms is a well-known force, and still is, because it's he's playing Commander and stuff. And it's just a great blocking body on turn 2 that draws you a card for just a couple of mana, holds down the ground against all manner of aggro decks. It's just a fantastic card. It's great to be blinked, and there's a lot of blink effects in this set, so it's going to be good enough in Commander at the very least, or not Commander, but Limited at the very least. And it's a great blink target in Modern if you're trying to blink stuff in Modern too. So there's that, you know. It's just, Wall of Blossoms. great to bounce it back to your hand, recast it, you know, like we just saw. What is it, String of Disappearances? That's going to be fun with Wall of Blossoms in the Limited environment at the very least. Like, Wall of Blossoms is in Modern, and I'm not sure, sadly, I hate to report that I'm not sure how, like, impactful it is to actually have this card in Modern, but that doesn't keep me from being excited. I love Wall of Blossoms and have for about 20 years now, so it's really, really cool to see it introduced into a, you know, not a new format or anything, but a format that's new to it, and a format where people have been talking about wanting it for 10 years. So please use Wall of Blossoms now that we have it. Now, one of the most powerful cards of the day that I'm going to show my face for is just a random uncommon that I think people are sort of undervaluing, and that's Watcher for Tomorrow. This is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 human wizard with Hideaway. In case you haven't seen this mechanic in a while, when it enters the battlefield, it does so tapped, and you look at the top 4 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom of your library. When Watcher of Tomorrow leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card into its owner's hand. Okay, so you want to talk about, like, 2 mana creatures that effectively draw a card when they enter the battlefield? Yeah, this is pretty good. This might be better than Wall of Blossoms. The creature types are on point. 2 really important creature types here. And, like, impulsing when you enter the battlefield is pretty good, and like this will trade easily in combat against aggro decks. You know, this is just like a super Augur of Bolus or something like that. You know, it draws you any card that you want, even if it's like a land. You can snatch it. It's totally fine, but you get creature, planeswalker, spell, what, it doesn't matter with this. An artifact, if you're looking for artifacts. This goes pretty well in combo decks that are digging for specific tools in early turns of the game, but also need to play bodies on the battlefield so that they can, like, you know, stave the incoming tide of aggro creatures. So I like so much about this. I would like a 2-mana 2/1 that just draws a card when it enters the battlefield. That would seem good enough. And even though this doesn't give you the card immediately, the fact that it effectively draws you the best card out of the top 4 when it did enter the battlefield is absolutely insane. And I don't think that entering the battlefield tapped really hurts this card too much. It just looks insanely good to me. And I'm a little surprised that most of the, you know, early reports on this card have all been like, it seems fine. No, I think this seems really good for a wide variety of decks, especially decks, again, that are trying to dig for specific cards this early, but can't afford to just, like, not affect the board. This does both. I think it's going to be a huge deal. And decks that, you know, blink creatures, this is really, really good, like, really, really good to blink. It's great to bounce as well. I mean, we're just talking about String of Disappearances and stuff, so yeah, I like this card so much. And I really hope it ends up seeing some amount of, like, actual, tournament level Modern play, because I think this card does so much. But if nothing else, it might actually be, a highly played Commander card too for blue decks, because again, this effect is just insanely good for just about any deck with islands in it, is my contention. But especially in, formats like Commander, where you often are digging for specific cards. This is just going to be really good. So I like this card a lot, and yeah, I feel like it's one of the most impactful cards of the day, and I'll stand by that statement. Card looks ridiculous. But up next, I'm going to show my face for this one. I actually think this one is impactful for me. For me, on a personal level, I love this card, and it's Rot Widow Pack. This is 4 mana, 2, a black, and a green for a 2/4 spider with reach. A 4 mana 2/4 with reach, that's a spider. And if you pay 3, a black, and a green, and exile the creature card from your graveyard, you create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach, and then each opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. Alright, so this is specifically and only a bone for Ishkana players. I guess you could play the Jund Spider too as your commander, but get out of here. Ishkana. This is 4 Ishkana commander players, and I could not thank Wizards enough, because this is really good. It's actually a pretty parallel effect with Ishkana. It goes well into an Ishkana, and if you have both on the battlefield at the same time, you're just going to be hitting and sapping for a bunch of damage. So good. I'm just really, really happy that this card exists. I will say that, exiling stuff from your graveyard isn't necessarily great if you're trying to hit the Delirium on Ishkana when you do play her. So, there's a little bit of tension there, but not enough to really count. I just love that they gave one specific player, the Commander Ishkana player, this card. And thank you, Wizards. I, and maybe no one else, am very pleased this card exists. I actually get the feeling there are way more Spider players out there than just me. We are legions. Spider Tribe represent in the comment section down there. But anyway, let's move on to Mira Didnt Be Besieged. Really interesting card, if not necessarily the best card. But time will tell, right? This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. As it enters the battlefield, choose Mirren or Phyrexian. Choose Mirren. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token, so it's a worse version of Sai. For the most part, it's a lesser removable, but mostly worse version of Sai. But the Phyrexian part is the interesting part. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game. So the Phyrexian half of this is awesome. I always knew I liked the Phyrexians more. But still, you won't always choose Phyrexian. I guess you won't always choose Phyrexian. Who knows? You might want a token creator, especially if you've already got one of these out on Phyrexian. But then you just probably want to loot twice in one turn. I might seriously just pick Phyrexian every single time. But still, at the very least, if you do pick Phyrexian, again, you get a loot every turn, which is actually pretty good for a 3 mana investment. And it's technically not even a do-nothing enchantment. Turn you play it, it loots, right? So that's kind of good. So, I don't know. I think this might actually have a little bit of play on it, but getting 15 artifacts in your graveyard is the difficult part. That's going to be the part that's tough, but you can just play a bunch of eggs, chromatic spheres and whatnot, spell bombs, I guess. That's one way of doing it. Or you could just, dredge, I guess, a bunch of artifacts. That's going to be tough. That's a tough call. How do you play enough dredge cards and artifacts in your deck? It's a tough balance, a weird deck building challenge, but a fun one at that. So maybe you can just self-mill a bunch of artifacts in the graveyard. There are plenty of ways to do it, but 15 artifacts is no joke. It's most of these artifact decks are probably going to play 24, 26 artifacts. Although I guess you could build a deck that's literally nothing but artifacts in this. This actually has opportunity cost in its own deck because it's not an artifact. But if you just played 34 other artifacts in your deck and then 4 copies of this, you might be able to actually make it work. So it's gonna be a fun deck to try and put our heads together on and try and make work. And it might be a fun thing in Modern, but I doubt it's a real thing in Modern. Another card that those last words probably apply to, but I will probably try to make work way more than the last card, is Lay Jizz Slumber. My god, this is 2 mana. 1 and a blue for legendary snow enchantment. And whenever Lay Jizz Slumber or another snow permanent enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more snow permanents, sacrifice Slumber. If you do, create Mira Didnt Be. It's a legendary 2020 black avatar creature with flying and indestructible that gets passed to exile like immediately. All jokes aside, though, like that is, I'm not saying dies to removal. Calm down. It was a joke, everybody. But still, all jokes aside, I think this is actually awesome. Which I think a lot of people, that's the basic reaction to this. Is they're like, holy crap, this card's awesome, but probably bad. But I don't know that I'd go that far. I really don't. You know, technically you only have to have 9 snow permanents in play. You know, it's Snow Ascend, but it counts itself. You know, it's a snow permanent. Doesn't say other, so... You know, you have to have 9 other snow permanents in play. You can obviously just play snow lands, play snow basics and stuff. And you don't even have to play snow basics. Like, there are snow dual lands that you could play if you wanted to build like a 4 or 5 color snow deck. They exist out there. And other snow lands you might want to play, but they're just a bunch of snow cards this goes well with. You know, we just saw Arkham's Astrolabe, that's just 1 mana. We just saw the 1 mana 2/2 thing the other day, that's a snow creature. And there are other 1 mana and 2 mana even snow cards. You know, there's a 2 mana snow mana rock thing, Cold Steel Heart, that's its name. That's actually like fairly heavily played in Commander, in some Commander decks. And that's a snow permanent, you know, and it ramps you too, so you can play more snow permanents. So, and honestly too, this scries to help you, you know, make sure that you hit your snow drops and stuff. It scries when it ETBs, so it doesn't do nothing on turn 2. That's pretty good. And whenever you do play a snow permanent, like a land, you get to scry, and that's actually a really powerful effect. So I think this might have some legs. Might have some legs here. And even if you do, you know, even if Mira Didnt Be does get, like, Path to Exile or something like that, or a bunch of other effects, they can just exile this, deal with it forever, whatever. Or bounce it, you know, they can bounce this, and that's a cheap way of handling it. But even if they do, you still just play 4 of this in your deck or something, and hold it in your hand until they do kill Mira Didnt Be. Just play another one, you know? It won't take you anywhere near as long to get the second one as it did the first one. Rationally speaking, at least. You know, if you're able to get the first one, you should be able to get the second. So I really like this card. I really want to try to build around it, and I think that it has more play in it than just like you get a huge guy after a number of turns. Like the scrying on dropping basic lands, it's great. So I don't know, I think that this might actually have some real actual serious play on it. I want to try and make this work. But the final card of the day here, one that we actually saw late last night, is Unsettled Marinara. We got you hate it when the Marinara is unsettled. You got to stir it. This is just 2 mana. It's Unsettled Marinara. In case you think for some reason I actually think this card says Marinara. But anyway, it's 2 mana, a blue and a buff and a white for a 2/2 shapeshifter with changeling. And whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. Oh my god, y'all, it's the best cat they ever printed. I actually had a bunch of takes planned for that. Like, oh my god, it's the best goat ever printed. But I think that joke's been done to death. But still, the card's not that bad. It might as well, for all the coverage that it's getting, it might as well just have the type line Human Spirit. Those are the decks that everyone is wanting to slot this into. And yeah, it slots most easily into those. But honestly, any old tribe that's playing blue or white, or blue and white, can slot this right into their deck, and that's a lot of tribes. You know, and there's whole tribes that might want to fit blue mana or white mana so they can specifically just play this card, you know. So there's just obviously so many ridiculous implications for a tax effect like this. Note that obviously not only does it keep your opponent off of removing your creatures and stuff, but honestly, it also keeps them from hitting you with stuff, you know. I think a lot of people are skipping over, like, if your opponent wants to target you or a permanent you control, so it also keeps them off of, like, Thoughtseize and stuff, or at least it makes Thoughtseize cost more mana. And other effects like that, and that's really good and just shouldn't go unnoticed. But there's also obviously things like, you know, Fatal Push and Lightning Bolt costing double their effective normal rate is insane for just 2 mana. And we talk about a bear with upside like all the time, and a bear with upside is almost always going to be at least decent, but a bear with this kind of like universal upside and whatever deck you're trying to put it into is always like insanely powerful. So it doesn't even have to be in a tribal deck. It's pretty good, but it will obviously most often go there. This is the best card of the day, by far, and it's going to be hard to convince me otherwise. This card is ridiculous. But that's all for today. Anyway, that's it. It's all the spoilers, as you may have guessed from the little ditty there. But I'm done talking about cards for today, at least. I'm going to turn it over to you, though. Let me know how you felt about all these, any interactions that I missed, or anything that I just got plumb wrong in this video. Let me know about, because I'm all ears. I read your comments. But, yeah, aside from that, just like the video on your way out before you cut the lights. Like the video. Subscribe if you haven't done it yet. More spoilers on their way. Deck techs, gameplay, list videos, all kinds. You know how we do around here. Lots of content. I don't know why you haven't subscribed yet. So do that if you would. Ring the bell for the notifications. Hit up TCG Player. Link in the description down there. If you want to pre-order any of this stuff, especially just like sealed product, if you want boxes of this set, go ahead and get in before they're all gone. And if you feel like it, join the Patreon. Just $1 a month. Link in the description down there. I'll let you vote on what decks you want to see next. I'll let you know what's happening 24 hours in advance. But aside from that, I guess I'm done. So do the things that support content like this, and I'll catch you cats later. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.